All right, we're just about live, I think.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and we are live. Welcome everyone to our 13th episode of WeConnect. I'm with Nwamaka Agbakoba. and quickly before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that this podcast today is sponsored by NatureBox. They have really great snacks, and I'm going to be definitely enjoying this oatmeal after getting to do this great interview with Nwamaka. I usually start out my mornings, just drinking some tea, a little bit of fruit, and then kind of going into my day. And we have one person here who has joined us on this live, and hopefully we'll have some more who will be joining us forthcoming. So
Awesome.
yeah, and so welcome, Nwamaka. We always
Thank you.
We always start out or I like to start out my podcasts with asking the question, how are you feeling? So that's what I'm going to ask right now. How are you feeling, Nwamaka?
I am actually quite happy. I think if you had asked this question yesterday, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm grumpy. I'm not so sure how I'm feeling. But today I woke up pretty positive. It's a new day, new energy, new opportunity to be great. It's a great time to be alive, really. I'm happy.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I'm so happy to be here with you. This is, I mean, it's really wonderful. I mean, it's been like, I guess a little over a year, maybe, or maybe just a year since we had met on the Global Investor platform, right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, wow, like it's pretty amazing, right? Like that
Yeah.
how far
Yeah.
both of us have come since
Yeah.
then.
I mean, I can't believe it, Yeah.
Yeah, and just the miracle of virtual communication, right? Like, it's just so amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to just kind of dive right in there, and
Let's go.
ask you a few things. Oh, go on. Oh, what were you saying? Oh, so I wanted to ask,
No, I was saying, yeah, it's great. It's great to be here. Yeah.
yeah, well, so I read in your bio that you were originally from Nigeria. But do you have family still living there? And do you still have a very strong connection in Nigeria? I mean, I guess you haven't been able to visit, right? Nobody's been able to visit anywhere.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
in the last year or so, I haven't been. In fact, I haven't been in almost 2 years now. But still very strong connections in Nigeria. My parents live in Nigeria. I have an older brother who still lives in Nigeria with his wife and daughter. I have a really big extended family. So yes, really strong ties. And I still identify primarily as Nigerian, even though I'm Canadian as well. But yes, very much Nigerian, green, white, green flag still flying strong.
Awesome, awesome. And well, I um and then your travels brought you to Canada. Um so what, like, how did you end up, traveling to Canada then, and what brought you there?
So my first stop was actually the US. And quite
Oh,
frankly, I've actually lived in US more years than I have lived in Canada.
okay.
Yeah, but my parents had gone to school here in the US back in the 70s. So my mom was in a master's program. My dad was in a PhD program here when they met.
Oh,
So we have quite strong ties here. I have family, extended family here in the US as well. So my sister had actually come ahead of me to the US to go to college.
oh,
And
wow.
then one thing led to the other. About 5 years after my sister left, yeah, I came here to go to undergrad first and then to my master's program, and then finally moved on to live in Canada for quite a bit when my husband at the time, my ex-husband, had gone to grad school there. So yeah, it's it's been one thing that led to the other, but it's made a perfect story for my life.
Wonderful. Wow. Yeah. And I just, and I didn't do a sound check earlier, when we first went live, but since we have 4 viewers that have been on now, and a week ago the reason why I'm asking is because a week ago I had some technical difficulties, and what I found out was in the Facebook Live, no one could hear what was being
Oh
said.
no,
Yeah.
is
Now
that right?
I checked it 2 days ago, and it seemed to be working. But if anybody could drop a comment and let us know if you can hear us, because we had some technical difficulties before, and I just want to make sure that we don't continue that, like today. So if anyone could give any kind of indication, whether it's through a comment or a message or anything, letting us know if you can hear us, that would be so much appreciated. I mean, I don't know if I can see comments coming in as as we're chatting here. I don't see any comments coming in, but if anyone can let us know if you can hear, that's so appreciated, because I don't want us to record a whole interview and not have anybody hear it on Facebook.
Right.
Of course, the interview, it actually, like, the audio was recorded, but the interesting thing was that it wasn't it wasn't heard through the live. So I just wanted to make sure that
Oh wow.
that people can hear us,
Right,
there is
right, right.
possibility, give any kind of indication, because I hate to do a whole Facebook Live and then, and the only people who hear it is you and I. So yeah.
Right. So let
It,
me ask you, do you use another device to connect to the live, to the Facebook Live? Do you use another device to connect to Facebook Live?
no, well, I mean, I just, what I do is have it on Zoom, and then I share the Zoom screen on the Facebook Live, and then that's how it's, how it's
Okay,
done.
got
Yeah.
it.
Magic of technology, but we don't, I don't do like a streaming, kind of thing, or, any kind of
Right.
streaming or anything like that, for the live. So, yeah. So, I mean, I guess, if somebody lets us know, that's great. But I guess we should just keep rolling along. So you spend most of your time in the US, and then you went on to Canada. And I guess you travel between Canada and the US, like
That's
going
right.
back and forth. Okay. Um, and and I also read that since I've known you, you have always had a passion for fashion, right? So what led you to that kind of passion in designing?
So I think it's pretty much been a lifelong passion for me. And a lot of that I actually got from my mom and her from her mom. So when I was younger, my mom very much was interested in textiles. She would take me to these markets because she would sell at some point, but a lot of it was for her. She's very outgoing. And even at the time when we were younger, she was very outgoing. So her closet was always pretty marvelous. And I would follow her to these markets, and the fabrics were just so gorgeous. And because I've always been a plus size girl and then went on to become a plus size woman, there were a lot of fashions that I wanted to wear that weren't necessarily available in my size. So she would let me design what I wanted, and then she would have her own network of tailors make whatever, depending on who was best suited. And I didn't realize at the time what that was preparing me for. Her mom before her actually had a finishing school. So my grandma was always very particular about the way you dress, your posture, your behaviors on the outside. So it's a family trait, to be honest. And then as we started to grow older, from time to time, I would get these opportunities to travel back home, and I would be able to do the same thing, like make my own clothing. I wanted dramatic sleeves. I would go to stores. I would find sleeveless dresses that I didn't necessarily like. And I also wanted to have things that were uniquely mine, right? My style. So had an opportunity. I've worked in the international development space for quite a bit, most of my career. I have a background in emerging markets finance. And so I had this opportunity to take an assignment in Nigeria around 2013. And every time I would travel back and forth because I still maintained a residence in Canada, friends would be like, oh, I love this piece that you made for yourself. Can you make it for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? And so I would do that for my friends. And of course, they would pay me at cost. Sometimes it would cost me a little bit more. I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just, give me this token. And then fast forward a couple of years, moved back to Canada because my son wasn't doing too well in Nigeria. So took him back to Canada, which was a lifesaver for me because I then became quite ill. So about 2016, really ill. My health kind of crashed. I was laying in bed on oxygen 24/7 with nothing but time on my hands. But it was, MK Kirby was like a life-saving thing for me because it kind of took my mind off of the issues that I was going through. I would message people on my phone. Some people didn't even know what I was going through. Oh, could you still do this for me? Could you do that? I'm like, oh, sure. So I'm like, well, you know what? We could actually formalize this. And I remember my mom actually laying beside me in bed because I spent so much time in bed. And we were starting to work out measurements and things. So a lot of the work I was doing while really sick on oxygen all the time. And my mom would lay there and like, well, what about this person that you made clothes for? Well, let's look at standard measurements and then look at hers and kind of figure out what curvy women had in common across the sizes. And that's how MK Kirby was pretty much born. Very simple story, but it gave me the resolve as a single mom myself who was going through so much. I started wanting to do more, even though previous to that I had done gender equity work, but I found myself figuring if I had so much access and I still went through so much, and it was very heavy going through that. I recognized that women who have so much less access than I do and so much more less at their disposal, I couldn't imagine what they're going through, trying to raise their kids, just live, and all the other things that women have going on in their lives. I just wanted to do more. So I determined not to move the bulk of production to Asia, which made a lot of sense for other clothing lines. I decided to keep it in Africa and naturally Nigeria because I have the deepest roots there. So I started out in Nigeria and still hoping to move into other countries.
Yes. And, it's been so exciting to watch, watch your evolution and watch, how MK Kirby has grown and how much
Thank
you
you.
have, you know, evolved as an entrepreneur, and to see you in your speaking engagements that
Thank
you've
you.
done for a global investor, you know, and just overall, you know, just like watching you growing and thriving, you know, as an entrepreneur and as a fashion designer, which, you know,
Thank you.
by the
Thank
way,
you.
like the Facebook Live people can see, you know, what a beautiful, I believe that's a dress that you're wearing, right? Um,
It,
and
it is.
your earrings that, oh my gosh, I mean, just beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But you know, I'm so struck by how you were sharing about, like, even though you were sick, you know, you were ill, like you, that gave you the inspiration to, you know, to like to start this. With that kind of, it reminded me of when I was speaking with Alexa Rose Carlin, who's the CEO of Women Empower X, and how she had an autoimmune disease. I'll just share really briefly, like, you know, the connection. She had an autoimmune disease that she acquired after she had a near-death experience, and and I, you know, she was so ill from that. And she had all these really great ideas of things that she wanted to do. And she, in the beginning, she was waiting for herself to start to feel better, to get better, to start doing all of the things that she wanted to do. And then suddenly she got this realization that she didn't want to wait until she got better, like, you know, to start doing these things. And so she just started to launch her own, like, you know, podcasts and start her own blog and everything, you know, while she was still sick. And it inspired, it like kind of almost healed her. And that sounds like what happened to you, like, you know, perhaps MK Curvy
Yep.
kind of healed
Yep.
you in your illness and gave you a reason to thrive, you know?
Absolutely. And you know, that's self-love is essentially the platform that we've built on. Because I always say to women, even at the throes of what I was going through, I would show up at parties with my tank, you know, looking all cute. And people would be like, what is wrong with her? Doesn't she recognize how ill she is? Doesn't she recognize what she's going through? But I'm like, look, a little makeup, a nice dress. Even when, you know, I was laying in a hospital bed, I would constantly just want to wash my face and look the best that I could given the circumstance, because it just made me feel a little better about myself. And if I can present a little better, then all of a sudden, you know, half of my issues, and this is not to minimize anyone's issues, I do have an autoimmune disease as well, which means that when I have this makeup on and I show up, folks don't recognize sometimes how fatigued I am, how tired my brain is, how tired my body is, but I can still motivate myself. And it sort of improves my relationships with my family, my friends, professionally. When I present this way, I'm looking better, I'm feeling a little better, then I can just motivate myself to keep going. So totally hear you on that story. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and you know, I saw that kind of connection, you know, and Alexa Rose Carlin was, you know, sharing about that. I guess a couple of months ago when I had first started the WeConnect podcast, when I interviewed her. But you know, I want to go back to you know, you were talking about and your passion for, you know, fashion design and how that kind of lifted you up, you know. So, you know, I guess your mother was a mentor of yours in doing fashion design, and, you know, and the other people in your life, you know, kind of encouraged you to create those beautiful designs for them. You know, I read in the bio that you had sent me, you mentioned that that your parents, you know, helped you to feel, to understand more of the like idea of self-love and body positivity, you know, for like in curvy women and, you know, being plus size. In what way did they, you know, teach you to have that kind of appreciation and love and body positivity? Is there like any kind of ways that they
So, you
build
know,
that in you?
that's a great, absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for that question. So I come from a country or community where saying to someone that they're fat is not necessarily a person trying to be rude or a person trying to be malicious. Quite frankly, that's just the way we speak. Our filters are very different from filters that you might find here, you know, in the US or other Western countries. It's neither good nor bad. Sometimes I think it's really bad because you don't know how the person is feeling about themselves. But I grew up in that society where you're fat, right? And that's what a person will say to you. Or when they see you and you've grown a little bigger than the last time, the greeting is like, why are you so fat? You know, so those things for a child who was, I can be a little bit sensitive. So that those things were a little hurtful for me, but my parents always made sure that I always felt really good about myself. They would say these really positive things to me. My dad, most especially, you know, when I started to fill out a little bit and started to wear the training bras ahead of my peers, I would walk around with folded arms because I was a little bit conscious of my body because I was bigger than other kids. But my dad would also always say to me, come on, look up, you know, walk straight, walk tall, you're beautiful. You know, he would constantly say these positive things to me. And my mom as well would make sure that I was always so well dressed that, you know, that trumped everything else. So those things very early on helped me to understand how very special I am. So, you know, the kindness, the affirmations, just showing me how beautiful I am carried me through life, even when I left home. And there were instances that I didn't feel that pretty because I let all of the messaging filter in, and everybody goes through that. But at the end of the day, I kind of came back to, you know, the center, that center of gravity that they had created for me.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I can see how, you know, how much that's led you and guided you and, you know, and formulated you and your business and your confidence, you know, and what the message that you're able to pass on and, you know, instill for others, you know. Um, I mean, that's just so wonderful. Like, you know, I mean, because, you know, and I mean, I feel like I feel like in the US we're getting a little bit better with these things, right? You know, in clothing stores, you know, it's not like, you know, plus size clothing isn't like tucked all the way into the back, you know, like with all the discount racks and all this kind of stuff, right? You
Yeah.
know, like it's like we're like, no, you know, like women do, you know, women should grow and, you know, and be beautiful and like, you know, and maternity clothing isn't something to be like embarrassed about or whatever, or like, you know, plus size clothing
Yeah.
is just something that, you know, like we don't want women to feel uncomfortable is what it says. You know, it says like, you know, like we want women to feel good,
Yeah.
and, you know, because women want to feel good, you know,
Absolutely.
and it's good. I feel like it's beautiful that fashion designers are now understanding that it's not only about like looking good, right? Because of course it is, right? I mean, you know, like that is that aspect, but it's also about being healthy, you know, and the idea of modeling,
Absolutely.
feeling like, oh, they need to be super thin, or even women in general thinking that they need to, like, worry about their size and all this kind of, all these things. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it still is a problem in our society, but I feel like it's being understood a little bit more, and that,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to what you said, it's not advocating that a person is at the highest weight, right? That they should not maintain a healthy body. We advocate for all of that. But the truth is, I've been a size 8 all the way up to like a size 22, right? Even pushing on 24. But at every given time, what has motivated me is just making myself look better, making myself feel better. If I'm going to work out, I'm working out in pretty bright outfits that, just motivate me to get up and put on those clothes and get out there. And to be honest, when I was at my sickest, I was probably like a size 8. I'm about a size 14 US right now. And I am so much healthier and doing so much better than I was at a size 8. So the size is not what we push for. We just push for living your best life, being happy and looking good, whatever size it is that you're at, right? And you don't necessarily, it's all fine if you want to show a little skin, do whatever, but we also want clothes. We at MK Curvy, we do clothing that you can sort of cross over from casual to business to, semi-casual. Like my dress, if I threw on a pair of pumps, I could attend a meeting with it. If I threw on a pair of sneakers, I could, go to the mall with it. So we kind of want those clothes where you don't only want to wear it to a club. We also try to provide a range of things that could kind of take you, from going to see a girlfriend and going out to brunch, to dinner with your significant other, to going to weddings and parties. So
right.
looking good, whatever the occasion.
Exactly. I love it. Definitely. And, and having that kind of idea of versatility, like, and saying it almost kind of gives that message to women, like, we want to, the clothing wants to work with that specific individual woman, whatever her needs are, wherever she's going to be going in life, and
Absolutely.
that's really great to
Yeah.
to do that. Like, no matter, if you're this size, if you're like a size 10 or a size, 20 or 22, 24, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, you're a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Well, I also know that you have a foundation called the Green Onyx Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization, right?
Yes.
And so, share a little bit about that, because I think that it's, I mean, I know about it, but I want the listeners to know more about that organization.
Right. So last year, at the very height of the pandemic, myself and my co-founder, Nwamaka Agbakoba, we started Green Onyx Foundation. And Green Onyx, even though the work with Green Onyx had actually started a couple of years before, individually, we had worked on fundraisers and just supporting a couple of orphanages with special needs kids in Nigeria. I, as a mom, had lived in Nigeria with my son who has special needs. He has mild cerebral palsy and a cognitive disability. And before we got a diagnosis for him, I know how difficult the journey was for me, not only in Canada, but in Nigeria, back to Canada. And I did not have a toolkit that essentially said to me, if my child has these developmental delays, this is what I do. This is what I should look out for. I was a first-time mom, even though I wasn't that young. I was in my mid-30s. But I was a first-time mom and had no idea. He looked like an absolutely healthy baby. And I kept on fighting. I'm like, no, there's something going on with this child. But even his physician would fight back. He's like, no, you're just overly concerned. But a mom's instinct is always top-notch, right? So trust your gut, no matter what it is, business, your child, life, just trust your gut. So from my experiences, I recognize how very difficult it was for me in a place as advanced as Canada, not to talk of the parents who were in Nigeria, where I had just recently at the time lived. And so I started to look for ways to give back. And somehow, in all of my searches, I came across a couple of organizations which I did, I did some work with. And then my co-founder reached out to me and said, hey, I'm doing, XYZ Nigeria. I'd love to work with you alongside to do this. So together we teamed up and we were doing all of this work for orphanages before we ended up coming together formally to birth Green Onyx Foundation. And initially we were focused on special needs kids, trying to meet their needs, no matter what it is. We've done fundraising for the rent for where they actually are housed. We've done fundraising for relief during the pandemic, food, medicines, whatever, you name it. We've done fundraising for their physiotherapy. And then we decided, we thought after a while, you know what? They need so much more. And it's not just the kids, it's also the adults who live with disabilities in Nigeria. I myself have encountered my challenges traveling within that space. Every time I travel, I need to travel on with a supplemental oxygen concentrator. And it's fine when I'm in the US, Canada, Europe. But once I get into Nigeria, traveling on local flights, I always get kicked off with my concentrator, even though I'm paid, yada, yada, yada. So there's no policies in place, or there are no policies in place within that system. And we just realized how much advocacy, how much policy needs to be enforced, how much is needed in that system, whether within education, building like universal design, just even addressing stigma. And so we realized that there's base work that needs to be done across the field. And so we decided, you know what, this will benefit not just children, it will benefit people across the board. Because of my personal experience and IJ's academic experience, she's doing a PhD in special needs. She's a special needs educator. She's in a PhD program currently, and her research is targeted towards Nigeria. Again, we're both Nigerian, hence starting our work in Nigeria, but then moving out to other countries in Africa. But we're essentially doing a bunch of work, and we just put together an amazing team about to start doing, we've been doing a lot of work around stigma, but now we're starting to roll out research and other things just to provide a toolkit and even to empower people who live with disabilities so that they know how things can be and they start to advocate for themselves. Because every time I get kicked off a plane, it's nobody else but myself advocating for me. And in the end, I wear them down and they're just like, you know what, she's crazy. Just let her go sit down with this thing and hope to goodness she doesn't blow us out of the sky. I'm like, look, if you guys had the policies in place, you'd know what gadgets are allowed for flying, and know that I am no threat to anybody because I love myself and I need to get to where I'm going. So that's Green Onyx in a nutshell. And if anybody's looking to find us, we're on www.greenonyxfoundation.org. Instagram, you can find us on Green Onyx Foundation, and I'd be more than happy to tell you more.
That's awesome. Oh God, yeah. I mean,
Thank you.
I knew about, that they, having your son, and discovering some of, the difficulties that he was experiencing as he got older, had inspired you to start the organization. But I didn't know, like all the other advocacy that you were doing and all the other work that you were doing as well, under that organization. So that's really just wonderful. And yeah, definitely, if you want to learn more, take a look at her website, and see all the wonderful work that she's doing, and also on Instagram, at Green Onyx Foundation. Yeah, I mean, and so you mentioned that you're a single mother, and so am I, and I talk about it, like, here and there on WeConnect, and I just want to say, like, just having your own business and an organization, then also dealing with some of your own, like, difficulties, I mean, wow, it's so amazing to me that you're able to balance so much. Do you have any kind of, I guess, tips or things that you've learned through your experience that have helped you to bring you through, this journey, and still come out being such a healthy and and functioning person? Yeah, because I mean, some days I'm like, oh God.
I hear you. It
Yeah.
is hard. You know it. We've talked about this before. It is difficult. But one of the biggest things that I've learned through this journey is that I am not alone. It initially felt like it, and sometimes I myself almost feel like I was putting it all on myself, because it's like I owe it to my child to do everything for him. Like, no, my sister cannot do this. I am the mom. But I've learned, you know what? My sister and my mom have been amazing to my child. My friends have stepped in as moms to him even when I couldn't. Their husbands, my brothers, amazing. Like, they've all been amazing supports. And I've let his dad be there for him as well when he's been in the same vicinity as we have. But the biggest thing is build your tribe, lean on your tribe. Your tribe is there. Make sure that you build a network for your child as well, so that your child is not, or your children are not always clinging to you. Let them be a little bit independent, right? Let them go find themselves as well. Let them go play outside of you. You don't need to be the savior all the time. Also, my network of women, like, I met you through Global Investor, and this is a plug for Global Investor. Like, I can't say enough about Global Investor. Like, amazing women. Like, Anne will find you all the resources in the world. I met Susan Tafer on there. I told you Laura had posted right before in the group. She's like, oh, Amy and Amaka are going live. Chrissy will always message me out of the blues. There's so many amazing women that I've met through Global Investor that haven't had to share the resources in the journey, this journey as an entrepreneur. They don't have to share those resources, but it's just such an amazing world where we haven't met each other physically, but we've grown in this sisterhood where everybody wants to see you win, and everybody's sharing resources, and everybody is going out of their way. When they see something, it's like, oh, I thought this could be helpful to you, right? The Wednesday meetings that we have. I came in yesterday, Chrissy's like, girl, are you okay? Even Anne was like, I'm like, listen, I just ripped someone's head off. And, we talked about it. And just laughed about it, and it felt so much better, right? My girlfriends, they'll text me in the middle of like when my son has gone to bed, and we catch up about the day, just talk about the most ridiculous things, and I laugh. But those things are so, they seem like very minimal things, but we have to remember to be human. We have to remember to grant ourselves grace, switch off. We're just not built to be all about business 24/7. Like yesterday night, I was so frustrated about just about anything. And I hadn't written, because I also write poetry. It kind of helps me de-stress. I like to write I think a little clearer in writing. It sounds crazy, but when I'm writing, I think a little clearer than when I speak. And so I grabbed my notebook, and that was my way of de-stress. And I hadn't written a poem in months. But yesterday night, I'm like, I need to go to my quiet place. And so I picked up my book, I wrote a poem, I had a drink, I, chatted with my son, and he told me about the most ridiculous thing that happened in school. And that just put me in a better place. Today, I'm like, whoo, life is great. I can do all things. I can climb mountains. I can, touch the skies and catch the stars in my hands. So life is better.
Yeah.
Just give yourself grace. Yeah.
I so agree. Yeah, yeah. And like all of it, everything you said, and Ravinona, yeah, I mean, she is a champion for all women who are seeking funding for their businesses, for all women owned and founded, businesses, and connecting VCs and angel investors with entrepreneurs and founders. It's like, I mean, she's a powerhouse for doing that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I got connected with her, because then I got connected with you and all of those women, in those Wednesday meetings. I popped in yesterday to that Wednesday meeting. You told me about it, but you know what? Like, I was in the middle of like 3 different things going on all at once, like, and
Yeah.
I saw, oh yeah, I gotta pop into that Wednesday meeting. And I was just like, you know what? I had like my tree, over here, and then, I'm like, finishing up another call over here, and like, and, just juggling too much. And I just said, you know what, I'm getting up. And I like, like, I didn't even say hello or goodbye. I was just like, I'm out. I just popped out of the meeting.
I know, we're like, we lost Amy. But it was great to hear your voice. It just feels like popping in to say hi to a family member, and it's like, I'm out.
I mean, I wanted to stay longer. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to like at least say something, but it just wasn't happening. I mean, the minute when I was going to sit down to, say hello to everyone, then, something, I can't remember what it was, something going on with my tree, like a couple feet away from me. I was just like, nope, not now. All right. Leaving the meeting,
Right.
But, I mean, like, we do the best that we can, really. And that is, that's all we can do, I mean, like, we try to show up.
Honestly, that's all you can ask from yourself, Don't ask too much from you. I mean, you need to strive and all of that, be the best you can, but at the end of the day, as long as you're trying, tomorrow is another day, right? So
Exactly. And so, where, what do you have going on right now with MK Kirby and Green Onyx Foundation? Like, is there anything that you want listeners or people who are watching to know about that you're, currently working right now on? Like, is there anything that you're especially launching?
absolutely. So with MK Kirby, we're working on a few summer pieces, and it's not a full-blown collection. because we're still holding inventory through COVID. We just finished a Mother's Day sale, but we'll probably have another sale through the summer, but we're still holding inventory. So please go check us out, mkkirby.com. We produce through a network of amazing women, and, you know, putting money in our coffers enables us to pay them a very fair wage and continue to, you know, perpetuate business for them in Africa. We're currently in Nigeria, but it's just such an amazing thing to have seen our volumes of production with them continue to grow. We're doing a smaller run this time because, yes, we were one of those businesses where, you know, through COVID, it was not very pretty, but sales are starting to ramp back up. And I really appreciate all the support of whoever tells somebody about our brand or purchases a piece from us. You know, you're helping a woman to educate her child, build wealth, you know, start to do things a little bit more for herself. If it's education that she wants, those are the things that we stand for and the things that we're trying to do. With Green Onyx Foundation, where we actually are just starting to build a team, we're going to have a revamped website soon that will provide resources to parents on the ground. If you're looking for a physician for your child, those are some of the requests that we have. It's not as easy to find resources on the ground where you're not told by another parent. And unfortunately, a lot of parents there's still so much stigma around disability, where some people might even have a special needs child and you don't know because they just never speak about that child. That child is always at home. And so we're starting to speak more. And when they see people like me, they see people like my child, how well adjusted my child is. I constantly push him out there, even though he has these challenges, and he's such an amazing social human being. And you know, I have some friends who live in Nigeria who also have special needs kids, or they work with special needs kids. They're like, your child has no special needs. I'm like, oh, you don't know the half of it. I've just worked and quite frankly, I've had a lot of support from my family and friends to bring him up to this place. I've also learned to trust his teachers and work with his teachers. So shout out to the educators that have been in his life as well. But that's the kind of community and support that we're trying to build. And so providing these resources, providing scholarships to educators in the ecosystem as well, where we can, to bring them up to speed with their certifications. Those are the things that we're working on currently. So if anybody is looking to give towards a cause like ours, we appreciate it. If it's partnership in terms of giving time, if you have expertise, you know, please reach out to us. We're happy to take anything that we can. And we're even looking to build programs that, you know, maybe it's just the person who has resources here that have worked for them. Maybe there could be a buddy system for parents on the ground as well to see what could work, you know, just support, you know, it's all about support.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, now that you bring that up, like, you know, is there any kind of um uh like ideas or, you know, advice that you have for parents, for new parents who have special needs children, you know, and you know, that you learned along the way of, you know, well, you know, like advice on how to kind of um give them a little bit of encouragement, give the children encouragement, and also for the parents, you know, like to not be so worried or afraid, or, you know, feel so alone. You know, any kind of also mental health kind of, you know, tips and ideas that you have. You know, can you share any of that?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And these are some of the, I mean, I've had a few people give me the same advice. Trust. So when it comes to something like education, right? do as much as you can to educate yourself on the specific issues that your child is dealing with. Nobody can advocate for your child as much as you can. And so you need to be more practical than emotional and try to learn as much as possible about your child specifically, because even though your child has a condition, there are some conditions that don't occur in two people the same way. So understand your child's strengths, understand their weaknesses, and don't be emotional about it when someone tells you what it is. Again, physicians are there to tell you what the issues are, but it's up to you to determine in something. Sometimes it's beyond your power. But there's some things that even though your physician tells you this may never be your child, if you determine that for your child, you're going to advocate, you're going to look for the resources, and you're going to put in the time to bring your child up to speed as well. And you know what, like I said, build a tribe. You need to rest for yourself. You can only be the best for your child when you yourself are okay mentally, physically, emotionally, because most of all, you need to be emotional so that you're not taking out your frustration and your anger on your child. It's not that I have been perfect, but when I've gotten to that point, I've recognized. And so it's like, this anger is not because your child did anything, you're just tired. So you need to step away, you need to step back and just chill out right now. And quite frankly, because a child has a disability is not the end of the world. I think most special needs parents will tell you there's a period of denial when you're told that your child has this. It's like, no, I've always dreamed of being a mom, and, it had to be perfect. It can be, not perfect when it's my turn. But you need to move past that stage and recognize that, look, there's remedies sometimes. If there's no remedy, then there's management. Don't let it get worse because you're in denial. Go seek the help that you need for that child, because you owe it to the child. You really owe it. Your child has been given to you as a gift, and you need to treat your child as a gift and make sure that you do the best that you can to get the help that your child needs. In places like in Nigeria where we're working, sometimes the finances prohibit the parents from taking care of the child how they need to be cared for. Those are some of the things that we're hoping that we can help alleviate. But when you're in a country that there's supports for you, take advantage of the supports. Don't care about what anybody else thinks, because at the end of the day, 5 years later, when you've brought your child to a place where, had you not gotten that intervention, they wouldn't be there. Nobody, you're not doing it for anyone but yourself. But were you too ashamed to go leverage that help, the child will not be better off for it. So
Yeah,
don't be ashamed, ask for help, speak your truth.
exactly. Oh, I so agree with that. And what you mentioned about, taking care of yourself so that you're not too overtired, or feeling overwhelmed, right? And taking care, getting into that self-care, right? It is so essential. One thing that I do want to add to that, though, is in my own, and I'll share a little bit of my own personal kind of belief in this, is that in my belief is it's okay for your children to see you experience emotions, to
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, you're not getting angry to the level of like abusive, or whatever, right? But to experience those emotions, and then to have your children see you recover from them, because then they can understand that, oh, like I'm going to feel those things too, and then this is how I'm going to recover from feeling those feelings. Because so often I think that parents feel like, oh, I have to go into my room and scream into a pillow, or wait until my child goes to sleep at night and let out all my emotions. And it's like, I mean, that's not healthy either, right? For anyone.
No,
Right.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
And
I totally agree with you. I really do. And sometimes I've just totally lost it and it's just been that I'm having a bad day, but I make sure that in those instances, I go back to my child and say, hey, listen, this is what happened. Sometimes I don't go into detail, but it's like, look, I'm having a really bad day. I apologize for doing that. And I'm grateful that my son has a mind of his own. And when you're not doing right by him, he will tell you. He'll tell you, hey, listen, that is not cool. And I'm grateful that we have that relationship where, if I've done something that really wasn't cool, then I'll say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I messed up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, my daughter, she does that, also, like, mommy, you were yelling. It's like, yeah, I know, I was yelling, and I mean, yeah, and I believe very strongly that it's good to apologize, like show your children, like that the parents, we're not perfect. We don't, we're not gods. We don't like always get it right. Yeah. So, Maka, it's been really just such a pleasure talking with you today here on WeConnect
Thank
podcast.
you.
And this podcast will be available on YouTube. I If not later today, then most definitely by tomorrow on our YouTube channel.
Awesome.
And then by later this week, it will be available streamed on Spotify and iTunes and everywhere you get your podcasts. And it's just been so wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah. Everyone, please do visit Nwamaka's sites, mkcurvy.com. I'll have that in the show notes, and also greenonyxfoundation.org. Thank you again for being here with us today and for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Have a beautiful rest of your day, and yeah,
thank you, and my love to your princess.